All right, let's call this meeting to order, the Lancaster Township Planning Commission. First, we'll pledge allegiance to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, first off, we'll deal with our minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our last meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. I think we're going to adjust the schedule just a little bit here. We have some new business, but Tom McDermott's here, and we'd like to recognize him for his service for a couple of years on the commission. So, Tom?
Thank you.
Can anybody would like to take a picture? Maybe we could line up here.
Tony was going to do that for us.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
I got a haircut.
jump down here real quick and we'll all take a picture with Tom, correct?
Where do you want me?
Right here in the center.
Okay.
So your recognition.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, let's get it. We got one. Great.
Awesome.
Thank
you so much, Tom.
Much appreciated. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. John had a heck of a time tracking me down, you know? Thank you very much. Appreciate it all.
All right, before we get started on the other agenda, is there anyone here who would like to make any public comments that are not currently on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to stormwater management plans, LTPC 333, Crossway Church.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm sorry I missed last month. My name's Todd Smig. I'm with DC Gunn Associates. Last month, I believe Brian Cooley from my office was here. And I believe the plans were presented as far as the stormwater management facilities that are being proposed for Crossway.
Right.
Basically for an accessory use for the graveyard. Was there any other follow-up? I understand there was a discussion at the Planning Commission, which again, I apologize I wasn't here. Does anyone have any follow-up to that? I believe everything's been vetted, so to speak, as far as it being an accessory use.
Well, I think since last meeting, I believe there were some more follow-up items and a letter from Ben to review those.
So last month you asked me to review,
And then we have
the question was, does the graveyard meet the ordinance? And the answer is my predecessor Tom had ruled that it was. There was some discussion, and through the township solicitor, he agreed that the graveyard does meet the ordinance. So we're comfortable moving forward with it.
Sounds good to me.
Excellent. And yes, Ben did review the project, and we did make a compliance submission. Now, there weren't very many items. Didn't know how the board wanted to proceed as far as there were 3 waivers for modifications, and then the rest, if I may, more or less housekeeping items, the financial security, operation and maintenance, signing and sealing all documents, etc.
Glenn, did you hear?
Excuse me.
Did you hear what John said about the one question
Yes.
for this one
Yes, I
last
did.
meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm seeing 9 modification or waivers per Ben's letter from dated May 28th.
There's we're looking at the Crossway Church.
Am I looking at the wrong one? No,
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm looking at honeysuckle.
One modification was loading ratios. The second was minimum pipe diameter for a pipe stormwater pipe we're proposing underneath the access drive. Instead of 15, we want 8, because we're limiting the stormwater that gets to it. And then the third was basically granting some relief to showing an inventory of 71 acres. Even though we show it on the plan, all of the details that are typically required for a project when we are looking at less than half an acre. Well, I'm sorry, less than 3/4 of an acre of disturbed area.
Ben, anything you'd like to?
I think we've ironed out pretty much all of the issues. As Todd says, we've got a few housekeeping items, administrative things, one minor plan change, and then it's taking care of the financial security and all of the documentation. So I'm hoping the Planning Commission can act favorably on the waivers and the plan.
All right, this one is listed as an action item, so how do we feel about it? Any comments, questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve the requested waiver number 1 for section 229-48.1 from fee loading ratios, that we recommend to the supervisors that they approve this request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the loading ratio waiver request. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
And I'll move that we also recommend to the supervisors that they approve the second request for waiver and modification on the minimum diameter pipe size as listed in Ben's review letter.
Second.
Dated June 10th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the second waiver request. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Could we have anybody want to make a motion for the third waiver?
I'll make that motion. I make a motion to recommend approval of the waiver and modification of section 229-36.3.C4 for depiction of significant environmental or topographic features as identified in the Lancaster Township Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the third waiver. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And then, could I have one for the whole stormwater management?
I'll move that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they recommend the stormwater management site plan in accordance with Ben's review letter, making sure all conditions are satisfied.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on LTPC 333 Crossway Church. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
And now we'll let Glenn take it.
Thank you, and I apologize for my tardiness. And thank you, Tom, for stepping right up. Appreciate that. So the next item is a subdivision and land development plan. It's LTPC 330, 2460 Honeysuckle Lane. And this is also an action item for a subdivision plan.
Good evening. Amanda Groff with Harbor Engineering here on behalf of the Goods, Karen and Scott Good. are the owners of 2460 Honeysuckle Lane. The property is a little over 2 acres. It's in the R2 residential zoning district, and it contains their existing dwelling, which is to remain. Their property is currently served by a well, but as part of this project, they'll connect to the public water, and they are connected to public sewer currently. So we're proposing a subdivision with a flag lot. That did go to the zoning hearing board back in January of 2024 for approval for the special exception of the flag lot. And then we did also get a time extension in November of last year. So on the new flag lot, they're proposing a single-family residence and then a detached garage, and that'll be on the eastern side of the property. As part of all the proposed improvements, we do have 2 subsurface infiltration beds proposed. The total disturbance will be under 1 acre, so there's no NPDS. The ENS was approved by the Conservation District back in February. And the new dwelling will also be connected to public water and public sewer, and the planning module exemption is in progress with DEP. So we did get Ben's updated review letter from May 28th of this year. Really just administrative items beyond the waivers and modifications. So this is the one that has 9 total modifications, 4 in the Saldo and then 5 in the stormwater. I don't know if you want me to go through each individually or if you have any questions before I go into that.
Ben, are any of these really substantive?
Not really. There's several that are fees in lieu of improvements, which we've done from time to time, rather than deferrals, if you recall. There was a bit of back and forth. Rest are fairly technical and not really substantial. So perhaps it makes sense to take all of the waivers as requested in one motion, and then act on the plan to make the process less arduous.
Thank you, that's what
That's what I was gonna
What's
ask.
the wishes of the planning commission?
That makes sense to me.
Agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion that we,
Hey, Glenn, I just have one little nitpicky question.
oh, sure, sure.
In the PNDI note about the bats,
Mm-hmm.
so with the time of year from May 15th to August 15th, I think it should say that tree clearing could be done August 16th to May 14th, but you have the same dates. So if the pup season starts May 15th, the tree clearing would have to end May 14th. Again, super nitpicky, I'm sorry. Just wanted to.
Yeah, so let me just make sure I mark this down right.
Does that impact any of the
No,
modifications? Okay.
not at all.
Say, well, why don't we hold that and we can make,
Oh, okay.
when we talk about the whole thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I wasn't following where you were going with that.
Any other questions? Then I'll entertain a motion that we'll recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they approve all the listed modification in Ben's letter of, was it June?
May 28th.
May 28th, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so carried. And then do we need any other subsequent motion for that, Ben, to?
Well, for the plan as a whole.
Yeah, for the plan. Okay.
Yeah, and
So-
if it's desired that it be conditioned on clarifying the tree clearing dates, that's perfectly sensible, yeah.
You can add that to whatever other
Sure.
else is in the
Sure.
conditions and.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that comment got through straight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. So just update the Pindy note on sheet
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
So do you want to make
I'll
a,
make,
go ahead, Tom.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors for their approval to approve LTPC 330 2460 Honeysuckle Lane subdivision plan as amended by Ben's letter from May 28th.
And adding.
and adding the bat
With the,
clarification.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Any other questions for anyone? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh. Did you get that, Gretchen? Okay, we have, everyone said aye?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Next up, under subdivision land development plans, we have Millersville Apartments, LTPC 327, retaining wall material change request, and this is listed as a discussion item.
Good evening. I'm Tom Borghetti with Burger Development. I presented this project before you through land development. Just a reminder, this project at 1896 Millersville Road features, 4 apartment buildings. And I'll point out the wall. We're here to discuss the change of material is this one, along the basin. Construction on this project is underway. If you had the opportunity to drive by, you'll see site work in progress. We've completed the clearing and are working on the basin and other earthwork items. And it was recommended to us by our contractor that we switch from the original plan approved material of the boulder wall to the retaining wall for a couple of reasons. And since that wall is integrated into the open space and part of the stormwater grading, we just wanted to kind of discuss that change in aesthetic. This was the originally proposed, boulder wall. This picture depicts a 3 to 4 foot high wall, which is consistent with what we have on the plan. And we would like to switch to this, pretty typical retaining block wall. As you can see, it is a little bit of a cleaner look, and also in terms of constructability, it is much more, consistent, easier for the contractor, to work with. When you work with the boulder wall, there's a great inconsistency of the material, not just in size and shape, but also, the color. And it's kind of a big puzzle trying to get all the blocks into the right place to achieve the required grading on site. You see the height of this wall here is 3 blocks high with the stone, and that's consistent with what the wall would be on the plan. This picture really depicts the variation in color there, which we not only then complements the basin, but will also complement our buildings. See, same as was presented in the previous approvals. We have a mix of materials here. It's a brick type stone mixed with an upgraded vinyl siding, both horizontal and vertical. And when we compared all the materials to the block wall, they really complemented each other nicely. So here this evening, we just wanted to have a discussion with the Planning Commission, see if you had an opinion on which aesthetic you would prefer, and provide some direction to staff for approval on the change.
Yeah, I like the block look better, and I would think too for longevity, for maintenance and other kinds of things that could occur with the openings and the boulders and so forth. I like the block. So I'd like to hear other comments from the Planning Commission members.
So is this change being requested based on the essentially ease of implementation, or is there a functionality of that wall versus the other wall that wasn't being met?
They'll both pretty much function the same way. I'd actually say that the block wall functions a little bit better for drainage, just how it's constructed. It will have a drainage layer of stone behind with piping going underneath it. With the boulder wall, it's very difficult to implement that same method, that snake pipes through it. We will have the storm pipes going through the wall from our inlets on site. So again, it's, you know, a little easier to construct that with the block around those pipes. And as stated, for maintenance, if any pipe was to need to be replaced in the future, you know, removing some of the blocks and replacing that pipe would be easier than having to, you know, shift around the boulders.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out why maybe you didn't go with that in the first place. Like, is this something, you know, why we're here getting a change versus?
Yeah, so this is a selection that through our process, we would typically wait till we do select the contractors based on, you know, their experience and comfort with the materials that they, you know, like to use. As part of addressing some comments through like land development, it was requested that we put a detail of the wall, and this is what we, you know, were able to provide at that time. But now that we have better details on this wall and kind of like how this works with our buildings, this probably would be what we presented to the commission in the future.
Thanks.
I would think the stones are probably hard to source too, honestly.
It is, and the contractor did say he could get the quantity that we needed, but again, you're kind of stuck with what you get is what you get, and you don't get upset. Like, you just gotta work with what's there. There's no real good quality control.
I work at a quarry and we don't sell them anymore because we can't.
Yeah.
So I understand.
What's the height of the wall throughout?
The max height is 3 feet.
3 feet. So do you think you need a geogrid? Has that been designed?
The proposed standard design doesn't include a geogrid. Again, that was the contractor's preference on it. Because of the height of the wall, you typically wouldn't, you know, have a design, but we're working with code enforcement on the requirements for permitting of that.
Okay. I'm just curious how that geogrid interacts with the basin berm, or specifically the clay, but I don't think the clay is going to be coming up that high.
Yeah, so and Adam maybe can speak to this. I believe this section of the berm is in cut and the fill is here, so the clay core would only be in the section of fill along the berm.
Yeah, we have a similar situation here where the clay core stops short of this seating area with the educational signage.
And these ends of the wall also taper down from the 3 feet to grade, so it is possible in these sections closer to the berm that would not require geogrid because of the transition in height.
Do you know the approximate dimensions of the boulder? Like, I know they're not uniform, but.
Yeah, so I think figured at least 2 feet deep. They would probably be somewhat more, maybe some would be 3 feet. They probably wouldn't be less than 2 feet to maintain their position on the wall, and the width of the block is a foot.
Any idea what the weight was?
Heavier than I can lift.
Right.
That's the other thing with the block. It is, you know, easier to handle with the boulders. You can only use big, heavy equipment to do it.
And how is the wall going to interact with the platform there? So is that platform going to sit on top of the wall?
I would have to go back and check the design. We did have that designed by a structural engineer. We believe didn't account for it like sitting on the wall, so it would have its separate piers and foundations supporting the weight
So there'll
of
be
the
a gap
platform.
between the top of that wall and the bottom of the decking.
Yeah, that is what I would assume. I would have to go back and check that plans, but I know he wasn't using the wall as any type of support for the platform. It was designed completely separately from the wall.
Do you know, I'm just saying also it looks like the geogrid might be conflict with the pavement section there. I don't know, it doesn't say the depth of the first grid that you need. Or does it say the length of the grid? But that pavement section, I'm guessing, for 8 inches for 2A plus another 10 inches, so call it 10 inches total.
So the first grid that would be required would be on the first block of the wall. And for a 3-foot high wall, if I'm remembering back to the plans, it wouldn't be a max of 5 feet. So with that depth, you should still be able to put the pavement section on top of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Deborah, do you have anything? Okay, any other questions?
Don't have any comments or?
I didn't have any concerns one way or the other. The only issue is that we'd talked quite a bit about the stormwater facility being in the open space and making sure that it's reflective of the intent of an open space area within an open space development. And it will be something that will be visible to those who are walking. And just wanted to make sure that this material change would be aesthetically okay. Lancaster Township and the fire department used it recently in Community Park. You know, we used a segmental block. So I don't have any concerns about it, but just wanted to make sure that if the planning commission had any concerns or questions, we'd run it past you. So no real action is needed.
Okay. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. If there is any strong objection, we'd like to hear it.
We're all in agreement.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
That's right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move into new business.
Give you a granite one?
Yeah, with Italian marble seams on it. And then we have Mr. Law, or we want to comment on Tom McDermott, who served as a member of this commission. And Tom, I don't know if he's already moved or not. I know he sold his house.
Oh, he was here earlier and we gave him a little.
Oh, he did. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. All right, so we'll ask Bill Laudine to come forward. It's something that we asked Bill to come and just share an overview because we know this comprehensive plan is coming up, and so Bill has agreed to come and give us an overview of what we can, I guess, expect and anticipate will be our role, or what the...
Well, I had a little different of an understanding of what I was going to do.
Okay.
I heard that you folks had an interest in maybe a comprehensive plan, so I kind of came as a resource because currently we don't have a plan to do a comprehensive plan.
Correct. Stand corrected. Yes.
Okay, good, thank goodness, because I thought maybe I had some homework that I didn't do.
Well, John had pointed out the date coming up, and we said, what's happening, and we said, well, let's just have a little forum to talk about this.
Sure. I can give you a little background as to where we are now and field any questions you might have, or talk a little bit about how we implement the current comprehensive plan. So our current comprehensive plan is the Growing Together Regional Comprehensive Plan. It is getting a little long in the tooth. It was developed in 2007. I was part of the group that did that. I was also in charge of the LIMC probably a half dozen years ago when we considered whether or not we were going to update that plan. Of the member communities, about half of them are in the same boat that we are, where we use that, where they use that, and we use that as our only comprehensive plan. The other half of the communities either overlaid that with a more specific community plan or in the process of creating a more specific community plan. If you haven't seen the document, it's quite large. In my opinion, its weakness is that it has far too many objectives and recommendations, and it kind of diluted the impact of it. But it's sort of the nature of a regional comprehensive plan, and there's so many communities and such a diverse array of communities, both in size, boroughs, townships. Large communities as big as Manheim Township and as small as like East Petersburg Borough. So it's kind of the nature of the beast. And I think that's why it's worked really well for those communities that went, we need something more specific, where they delved into things that were a little bit more specific to their community, but retain the regional plan because of how compact we are in the metro area, and how really stuff like transportation planning or recreation, you can't ignore the fact that you're living in a real regional community. One of the reasons that we talked about not doing another regional plan was just because of the cost and the size and the scope of it, but also we were waiting for Places 2040 to be completed, and that was done a few years ago. The county's comprehensive plan is a wonderful document, unlike the last go around, which was this thick. It's about this thick, and it really focuses on some actionable items and some key guiding principles. If you haven't looked at Places 2040, I'd encourage you to. I think it sets a good standard for what we could do and should do if we decide to do a comprehensive plan here. The other document I'd ask you to take a look at for some guidance is Manheim Township's comprehensive plan. They did an implementable comprehensive plan, which is kind of a new concept that DCED has pushed. The other communities that have done it are, I wrote this down, Churchill Borough, Monroeville, Wilkins Township, Manheim Township, and Bucks County. And the reason I point that out is we have a first-class township, a second-class township, a county, a home rule community, and a borough, and those communities vary in size from 3,000 up to 43,000, with Bucks County being, in the millions. The idea there is instead of doing, it's funny, it's a comprehensive plan, but instead of making it so comprehensive, those communities took specific, short-term, measurable objectives, and then used that as a foundation to then make changes wherever they were needed as part of that process in the zoning ordinance or the saldo or whatever, an official map or whatever documents they have. So if we were going to go in that direction, I think transportation really has to be a regional, this is just my opinion, but transportation really has to be a regional effort. There's no way that, we have to look at we can't look at Columbia Avenue or 999 in a vacuum, right? Recreational park planning, we've done a little bit of an overview and an evaluation of where we are, and by and large, we're not only served by the facilities we have, but we are in such close proximity to other private and public facilities that I just don't think there's a lot of meat on the bone there. Where I think we really have an opportunity to have some forward vision is the limited number of properties that we have that are available for development, and they would be, in my opinion, the property on the corner of Wabank and Bean Hill Road, which is significant in size and high density for zoning. I think the properties along West Street provide an interesting study to figure out, how we can best maximize the use of land there, and then infill development. Any development we have, any growth that we're going to see is going to come really as a result of adaptive reuse or infill development for the smaller properties that we have. We just don't have very many tracts of any significant size left to develop. I mean, you see what we've done more recently at Honeysuckle and then over at St. Joe's, and I mean, those were some of the larger tracts we have, and you see what we had to do in terms of density to try to get maximum use out of those properties. So, this idea, this strategy of saying, okay, what are the key areas that we want to focus on, both in type and in actual physical properties, and then how do we want to see them developed is probably the biggest bang for the buck in terms of our time and effort. But I guess my question to you guys is, what would you like to see different or changed, or what was the motivation for this conversation? Because there are some other tools that we have available to us besides a comprehensive plan that we can really dig into. And for me, that's an official map, which can also identify and develop those properties, or at least look at key connectors. We have the zoning ordinance, which is probably due for a little bit of a refresher. Things like going up, which the current zoning ordinance doesn't provide for. And you guys have seen the number of waivers that we offer kind of at a rote process now. So in both the subdivision land development ordinance and in the zoning ordinance, are there things that we should be editing and cleaning up and make more practical? And I'm sure that there are plenty of other creative ideas that folks have or other communities use, but that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill, and I'm going to let John speak to it, because when John brought it up, it was more something driven by a date. But why don't you tell us what was your motivation to bring this to our attention, and what your thoughts were at that time, and then we'll each chime in.
Sure, you touched on it a little bit, but the first motivation was that, I'm sure you're aware, the MPC says that the comp plan needs to be reviewed or updated every 10 years. With a little bit extended past that point. And the second is that there's been a number of other close municipalities that are part of that original regional plan that have now gone ahead and created their own comp plans, as well as the county creating a new comp plan, which I personally haven't reviewed against our current one and to see how it fits together.
Okay.
But I think at this point, since it's how many years since 2007? You said 2007 or 9?
7.
7. So
when did we do the?
So in 17, the LIMC did do a review.
Oh, they did. Okay.
But it's coming up again. I mean, 2 years will be added again.
Right.
Yeah.
Ben, when did we do that official map thing? Because I think Gordon was still on the board, and Angie and myself, I think everybody, none of that.
Yeah, there was kind of a focus on Wabank Road and Bean Hill Road, looking at different options for what might happen in those areas. And I know it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it was a solid 5 years ago. We also, prior to that, we did take a look at what did we say in the LIMC growing together? What did we identify in Lancaster Township as goals that we wanted to do? We worked our way through all of those things and said, what does the Planning Commission recommend that we do differently than what we're doing now? So we've worked our way through all that, but we came back to that official map, sort of micro chunk, if you will.
I remember looking at, from a transportation, a local, where could we fill in some connections and some other things like that.
Yeah, getting Judy Lane and Bean Hill Road to perhaps line up, I think was.
I bet if we asked Gordon what year it was, he would know, right? Gordon, I'm shocked. But anyhow, we spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah, my other thought too would be to looking at the greenways and some of these trails that we can come up with a better approach to get more of these trails developed, especially now with the blue-green connector and looking at that and seeing if it can be extended through Lancaster Township further than already is what proposed, along those lines.
Right.
And I know that the Lancaster City's comp plan specifically calls out for a partnership with Lancaster Township to develop their Conestoga Greenway.
Right.
Ben, didn't we have conversations about that when we were talking about that official map before we wanted to get these greenways connected and trails and stuff?
Yeah, the greenways were part of it, also the Lancaster Heritage Pathway, and we're actively working with the city, Manheim Township, and the Blue-Green Corridor to attempt to make a connection for the Lancaster Heritage Pathway.
Well, I like what you said, Bill, when you said about looking at the zoning and other ordinances that we have, because, I mean, I was part of that, I think Angie was too, and I know Gordon, when we really did a thorough look at the Saldo and zoning, so
yeah,
I think that's a worthy thing for us to do.
Sure is.
Well, the last go around with the zoning ordinance, I think we tried to simplify the number of zones that we had and trying to open them up so that folks can use. We were looking at more impact based, so our commercial zones, our office professional zone went completely away, and we just kind of said, what's the impact of these kind of uses, and can we clump them together? And that was kind of in reaction to the County Planning Commission's efforts to try to simplify the zoning lexicon and make it more standard. I know they continue to push in that direction. I think we have a pretty tight list now, and I'm pretty happy with that. But for sure, there are some things in the zoning ordinance that I think need to be reviewed and amended. And if you were looking to take on a project, that would be one that I think would be most immediately impactful and helpful.
And I know we came up with some terms that hadn't been defined, and we got some of those things straightened out where it's just, there's nothing in there, so we.
Yeah, there are more than a few of those. We've kind of, especially on the alternative energy, like technologically, there are some things that have come along that we wouldn't have anticipated maybe even 10 years ago. The car chargers are one that we really wrestle with on how to manage and safely and provide access for. So yeah.
In fact, Gordon was the one that brought that up when he was still a member of this commission. That's something that we need to look at.
So if we went the comp plan route, that would typically be initiated by the supervisors. But you guys are always free to make any comment or recommendation to them if you think it's time. I'm happy to bring it to the supervisors. If they were going to go that route, then they would put together a team, and that team is typically represented by the Planning Commission, the Zoning Hearing Board, members of the public, usually at least one board supervisor, and then the staff. There's a significant period of public engagement, both at the front end of it and then through the process. And then we publish the document for review and approval. It would probably take, up to a year from tip to tail to get it organized. And then, cost really depends upon how much work the township is willing to do and how much work they need consultants for. We've been pretty frugal when we did the salvo, when we did the zoning ordinance. We did a lot of the heavy lifting, and then when we had a document that we thought was meaty, then we took it to a solicitor for a once over, rather than have a consultant develop the extra layer of having a consultant do a lot of work that we knew that we could do ourselves. We probably want to move in that direction here again. But we'd have to go through the budget process in the fall to look at doing that if we were going to look to do it in 2026.
Well, one of the things I remember we did was just not a whole lot of other activity going on, so we would still meet monthly and use that time to do the work on this. And I would suggest that whatever we do, that be a tactic that we use.
Well, if we were going to go full comp plan, then we probably have a committee outside of this committee doing that work, with members of this committee on that. If you wanted to do a review of the saldo or the zoning ordinance, then that's a project you could take on your own and add to your agenda on a regular basis.
That's what I was really referring to.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
I'm in favor of the comp plan and zooming in and coming up with a document that is actionable, like you mentioned. What's the term you use? That
implementable.
Implementable comp plan.
Yeah, having one that has thousands of recommendations is really not efficient, and it's really hard to measure if you've actually gotten to that point.
Bill picked that on Jeopardy. He goes, "I'll make vocabulary for 400."
All right, I'll talk to the board and we'll see what their level of interest is. And
also cost too. There's also I'm sure where the DCD's municipal assistance program, they give you a 50% grant for
looking forward to
documents.
Yeah. And they're a good resource for help with this new concept, and the county is always willing to pitch in.
Yeah, we had our county rep that would come in also.
Yeah, Scott Standish is no longer at the county, so they have an interim director now, so we've got to see how that shakes out.
Gwen?
Gwen Newell.
Yeah. Is she still there?
She is, but I don't think she's not assigned to us.
Yeah, okay. We haven't seen somebody for a while. Do you know who?
Christine Le, I think.
That's right.
Yeah,
it is.
But she's never been here. Before Christine was Alex Rohrbaugh, I think.
Yeah.
And he popped in maybe once or twice. But I think they're really trying to get away from staff coming and
Yeah.
just sitting there. So just come in when they're really needed.
So, Edward, do you have any other comments or thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I'm glad to hear that it was reviewed after 10 years, because I think when you brought it up, it was an issue, like the length of time that it hadn't been looked at, but it was good to know that it was reviewed,
Okay.
and if it's an option, then great.
Great. You kept these guys in tune with what's going on with the prison, I'm
We've
assuming?
not talked about the latest update.
Okay. Well, the prison's coming, so that's going to consume, I just mentioned that because the amount of time that I think that that's going to take for this board is going to be significant. We're looking at maybe getting something, I didn't think we'd be looking at plans until the spring of next year, but the pace they're moving at, I think we might have something before the end of 2025. So if so, we probably want to be careful about timing in terms of making sure we leave enough room for that project, because I think that's going to be significant.
I'm good.
And is there anything else unrelated to this topic that, with the supervisors of the township, that you have any questions on?
Gordon?
Yeah, my question would be on finances. If the Board of Supervisors hasn't set aside money for the comp plan, how are we going to get started on it? Typically, before the comp plan started, there's money set aside at the beginning of the year.
Right. Well, we hadn't anticipated doing that in 2025, so, we'd have to go through the budget process in the fall and then put money aside for 2026.
If the money isn't readily available, that might be another thing to justify doing the saldo or something else in the interim. And then next year, after the finances are there, then start the comp plan.
Okay.
And in my opinion, at least, the regulations that we use every day, or every meeting actually, they're pretty important. And I know, as probably everyone here, that there's an awful lot of problems with what we have in our saldo and everything right now.
Right.
John, do you have a comment?
I just wondered if we could do kind of a little bit what Gordon was recommending, more of like a stepped approach where we review the saldo and some of the zoning stuff before we go into a full comp plan.
Well, I think that will also give us some guidance of how much effort do we have to put into a comprehensive plan?
Right.
My thought.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I threw out this idea a few years ago. I don't think it really, didn't go too far, but maybe it was the genesis for the official map and some of the other things we've done. I have some concerns about the West Street property, and I have some concerns about the Bean Hill and Wabank property, in that because they are, not only are they one of our few chances to see and manage development that are left in the township, but their location is problematic for traffic and impact, right? So we had somebody come in recently and talk to us. We get developers come in and talk about West Street all the time, but the problem there is it's not easy to get in, it's not easy to get out. Getting out to Columbia Avenue from that front lot is a little swath that sits next to Sunoco, or you got to go on West Street, which is already way too narrow to have people parking on that street. And then both of those streets come out offset from Race Avenue, which is like terrible to try to get in or out of there. But if you go out the backside of that lot, where do you send people? You send them on Elm Street and out to Atkins or Spencer, where you can't make a left onto Columbia Avenue anyway. You bring them out to Southwest End Avenue. We already know we have both a volume and speed problem as well as a sight distance problem on Southwest End Avenue. So it's currently zoned, and that's one of the reasons it's currently zoned local commercial, is that we're not looking for residential development in there. But even for a local commercial site, it's a tight fit. So we have a huge impervious.
Which property are you talking about?
It's like behind Dominion's, Valentino's. It's a giant parking lot.
This one.
And it's all impervious, which presents stormwater problems.
Well, I've always wondered why that hasn't been.
It's a tough site to develop. So taking a focused look on that and what might be the best use and how we can encourage and facilitate some creative ideas? Do we shut down Elwood? There's some things that can be done if people put their heads together and said, hey, this, not only could this be done, but maybe we need to modify our ordinances to accommodate that. The same sort of thing is going to happen at the corner of Law Bank and Bean Hill. You know, we have the apartment complex right next door. We've got a high volume of traffic now on Bean Hill Road with all the development that's gone on and will continue to go on over there. So what do we want to see in there, and how do we want it to look, and what are the type of uses that or the ordinances modifications that we can have to encourage someone to come in and use that beneficially. So we're not chasing it. So a standard development doesn't come in and we're chasing our tails, trying to manage the impact of that development, both in terms of traffic use and neighbor impact.
Do you know how does the current comp plan talk about that area at all?
It identifies a handful of growth opportunity areas. I can't remember, I think that's one of them. Not West Street.
Growth how?
I'm sorry?
Growth how? Residential growth or commercial growth?
I think growing together, I can't remember the definition, but they had a section called growth opportunity areas, and those are basically large, they determine them by large parcels that have access to public water and public sewer.
Okay. The only reason I bring it up is because if we go through the effort of changing zoning and the saldo, and that's conflicting with what's in the comp plan, there is a real argument that for a lawyer and this developer to come in and say, your comp plan says this thing, I think we deserve to stand before the zoning hearing board and make an argument for, what's the word I'm looking for? When you try to get a relief, a variance,
Yeah.
Because if your comp plan's at odds with your zoning, you do have an argument to get that variance.
The nice thing about this comp plan is it says everything. So it would be very hard to be in conflict with the comp plan.
Well, I think you alluded to this, Bill, but I think the other thing that we're seeing in general is that there is going to be more adaptive reuse, repurposing. And I think that's something we can look at. Is there buildings that are sitting around in our township that have some potential? I know that, I guess, out on East Orange Street, there's been a couple of things that they've been looking at. So I think we can take a look at some of those, what opportunities that we have.
Yeah, the east side provides the most opportunities for adaptive reuse.
So at Bean Hill and Law Bank, we have the storage facility
On the one corner.
on the one corner. So this is the opposite corner on the north?
Well, on the east side,
On the east side. Okay.
Yep.
There's a big farm field back in behind.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know how we address that, if we have a charrette, if we roll out a map, if you guys take a look at that and just start drawing lines on the page, or
Sort of what we did before.
Yeah.
and coming up with an idea of, like, if somebody's gonna come in here, what could they put in here? Do we like that use? And what are the obstacles that they would face in terms of if some, like, what are the projects we wanna see, and then how can we help them along?
And that's so important to the developer and to the staff, because the staff that knows this is what we're looking for. So if somebody comes in with something that's just totally opposite and said, no, this is what we're looking for, and gives them more guidance as to handle the requests.
But typically, folks are gonna develop, engineers are gonna develop to the ordinance, and right now, we're a little bit restrictive. All right. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
Okay. John, any old business or new business? Or old business, I should say.
I did want to bring up one. Are we still in new business?
Yeah, Township.
It's. Go ahead.
We're still in new business. If you have something in new business.
Go ahead with the one that's on the
There is one agenda item on for, just as a discussion. We received a copy of the Township's draft comprehensive plan. You have some of the kind of a summary that was here, and we also emailed out a link to the full plan. Theirs is not approved yet. They're still working on it. It is a draft, but it is something, as you heard Bill mention, something maybe that we want to use to guide if we move forward with that. So we sent it out. They asked for any input. So I would ask that if anyone reviews and then has any input for that, it's probably easiest just to send it to me, and then I'll put it all together and pass it on to them.
And what's our deadline?
They gave us 90 days.
I think it was
So,
August something,
Yeah,
I think was in the email.
yeah.
Yeah.
So next week,
yesterday.
375 pages.
The day is always here and tomorrow never comes.
And yesterday?
That's a Beatles song.
Okay.
All right. Any other new business?
It's not on the agenda, but I did want to bring it up to get some thoughts from everyone on the planning commission. It may be self-serving, but I was curious if there is consensus on the group if we would be willing to take a look at our current grass, brush, and weeds ordinance. Currently, it's very restrictive, and you have to have grass that's mowed to 6 inches, and it doesn't matter whether it's a native, non-native. It has to be 6 inches, and I would think it would be beneficial to add something in there that allowed for someone to create some type of meadow on their property, or a meadow lawn that includes native plants and discourages the use of non-natives and invasives.
So, do we have something like that, Ben?
We do have an ordinance.
Yeah, because I think along River Drive, where at one time they were going to build houses, but it's in a floodplain, and some of the property owners chose to just let it grow naturally.
We do have an ordinance for a meadow.
No.
We do have a grass ordinance.
Correct.
Yeah. But we don't have anything that will capture any type of natural area, correct?
I don't recall that being the case, no.
Can I speak to this?
Yeah, good.
In my day job, I work for We Can Serve PA, which is a conservation nonprofit. And we've developed a model ordinance that is exactly what you're mentioning, and it's out for review with county planning offices, including Lancaster County's planning office. They give me really good comments on the draft. And as part of developing that model, I did a review of a lot of municipal weed ordinances that exist, including ours. And ours is I would give it a B. It's better than a lot because it actually defines what weeds are. And there's some flexibility in enforcing it if you want to do a meadow, because it allows for, it's not so restrictive. It allows for, I believe, plants with an ornamental or other useful purpose.
Yes.
Which I think in enforcing it, you could read usefulness to include beneficial features for pollinators, for example. But there is a lot of gray area. They all have a lot of gray area, which is the reason why we're working at this model. So I'd be happy to circulate that draft model ordinance.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
To the Planning Commission.
The problem with what our current one that I see is that grass is not captured in that ornamental area. The way that defines grass, and grass isn't a very important part of any meadow. But
that's what you mean, yeah. Well, for what it's worth, the way that this model worked conceptually is it creates a right for landowners to designate an area in which you get a lot more flexibility to plant native plants and things that might be otherwise prohibited by the general weed and lawn ordinance. I think it would actually play pretty well with existing lawn and weed ordinance that we have. But again, ours is not as bad and restrictive as what a lot of PA municipalities have.
What I'd suggest, if you'd send that to Ben, and then Gretchen can send it to us.
Okay.
yeah,
Does that
I'm
sound
not
good?
looking for any action. I just wanted to hear everyone's thoughts on possibly looking at the idea.
I'd also want to make sure, if you don't mind, Glenn, I'd like to make sure that this is within the purview of a planning commission.
Okay, good.
So I don't disagree with the idea that an ordinance shouldn't be looked at, but I just would like to make sure that we're following what our charter is as a planning commission.
I mean, looking at ordinance is definitely within the realm of a planning commission. Don't you agree?
Not all ordinances, no.
The way the township's ordinance establishing the planning commission gives all rights that are listed in the MPC, and to my knowledge, that's listed in the MPC.
Well, let's just say Ben will get an answer.
Sure.
And you can send out.
And there's a few properties I think are notable that I think are actually in conflict with the current ordinances. The Blue Green Connector Trail, that has a ton of grass. It's a meadow that if you read the ordinance, our current ordinance by the letter of the law, it would need to be mowed. Because it doesn't make any exceptions to meadows, or I mean to wetlands, to riparian buffers. And the other property I'm thinking of that, I'm not advocating that it needs to be mowed. I'm saying that it conflicts with it.
Wouldn't they fall under some sort of natural area?
There is no exemption for that. There currently is no exemptions except for ornamental, but not even for grass. The other one I'm thinking is the wheatland at the mansion there. They have a native lawn in front. That would be in conflict. And then the school with their meadow area, it's actually within the stormwater management area.
The rain garden.
They're not the rain gardens. They actually have a flower meadow by at the top of the basin there, near the where they have their basketball courts, playgrounds. The Smith Hill.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And then there's also then a conflict with the stormwater management ordinances where you allow for, natural areas in the bottom of the basin. And again, this ordinance conflicts with that because there's no exception for stormwater management areas. Again, if there's some agreement that we could look at it more, sure.
So as far as follow-up, then, if you could check that, Ben, and then just send out an email to us.
Justin, can you send out the sample ordinance to everyone?
Yeah.
That'd be great. I'd love to see that.
Well, could I start by sending it to you, Ben, and
Sure.
circulate it?
Yeah, maybe like it that it comes after.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, amazing timing.
Yeah.
I started talking, I can't believe I mentioned this.
My only comment about any changes to that is it has to be something that, from the zoning officer's point of view, that it's something that is clearly enforceable. So when it's not native or plants and so forth that are not, with that, we'll call it an exception for now, but if it doesn't meet that exception, there has to be a clear way for it to be enforced to be in compliance. And I just want to be careful how that gets worded. I know that might be a little tricky, but I think we can accomplish it, but I want to make sure that we still have the ability, the bite to take action if needed and not just, hey, you didn't cut your grass, you got to cut it, but I want to be able to actually take that to where we need to get compliance if push comes to shove.
Yeah, and depending on whatever is in your model, I think it's easily achieved by if the person wants to do this, then they have to get some type of permit that the township is aware that they're doing this on their property, and that stops anyone that might just be, if they're just lazy and they don't want to cut their lawn, that stops that from occurring because they don't have this current permit that allows them to do that.
This is probably too much detail for now. There's a commentary with the model. We're trying specifically with our model to avoid the need to stand up a permitting regime within the township, and it relies on observable things on the landscape. And the goal is to make monitoring and enforcement easier rather than harder. And there's a commentary explaining this, and your perspective would be especially great to have on whether it works.
Absolutely.
Any feedback is helpful.
Any other thing you want to update us on? Or?
I think we've covered it all.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And we expect to meet next week, or next month then? Or no? Anybody that?
I don't think we have anything active right now. I just, somebody just sent me something today. Who was that?
It's the only
Okay.
thing that we haven't, I think it's.
And that's through
Open.
planning commission, yeah, okay, yeah.
All right, so stay tuned about July 15th.
Yes.